and I could not stop running. My feet were bare. The ground was cold and wet beneath me. My chest was burning. My lungs were screaming, but I could not stop. I could not slow down. I could not even look back. Because whatever was behind me, I did not want to see it. My name is Chukwuemeka, and 3 hours ago, I was the happiest man in Lagos. Now I was running through darkness, half-dressed, bleeding from my ankle, with no idea where I was or how I got there. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story does not start with fear. It starts with a Friday night. It starts with music and drinks and laughter. It starts the way so many terrible things begin in this life, with a beautiful woman. My name is Chukwuemeka Okafor, but everybody called me Emeka. I was 32 years old. I worked as a sales manager for a telecommunications company in Victoria Island. I had a small but comfortable apartment in Surulere. I drove a 2019 Toyota Camry that I was still paying off. I was not rich, but I was doing well enough to enjoy myself on a Friday night without feeling guilty about it on Saturday morning. I was not a bad person. I want you to understand that before I continue. I was not a reckless man. I did not chase women everywhere I went. I was not the kind of man who picked up strangers in clubs every weekend. I had a girlfriend, Amara, who was visiting her family in Enugu that week. We were not engaged yet, but we were serious. We had talked about the future. We had talked about children. She trusted me. But that Friday, the 14th of October, my friend Biodun called me around 8 in the evening. Emeka, guy, you dey house? Yes, I said. I was lying on my couch watching a film. Abeg, come out. We dey Fusion tonight, VIP section. Oga Kunle is celebrating his promotion. Full vibes, no excuses. I tried to say no. I said I was tired. I said I had an early meeting. All of it was a lie. The truth was that Amara was not in town. The apartment felt too quiet. And deep down, I wanted to go. I just needed someone to push me. Biodun pushed me. 40 minutes later, I was standing in front of my mirror in a black shirt, dark jeans and clean white sneakers, spraying cologne on my neck and feeling like a man who had absolutely no idea that his life was about to be destroyed. Fusion nightclub was located in Admiralty Way in Lekki Phase 1. It was one of those Lagos clubs that looked modest from outside, but once you stepped through the main door, the whole world changed. The music hit you first, not just the sound of it, but the weight of it. The bass moved through your chest like a second heartbeat. The lights shifted every few seconds, blue to purple to red to gold, painting everybody's face in colors that made them look both beautiful and slightly unreal. The VIP section was elevated, which meant you could see the whole dance floor from above. Bottles of Hennessy and Ciroc were already on the table when I arrived. Kunle was in high spirits, greeting everyone with that wide Lagos smile that meant tonight was going to be long and expensive and absolutely worth it. We drank. We talked loudly over the music, the way you only can when you have known someone for years. We laughed at old stories. Biodun was already dancing with a girl he had met within 10 minutes of arriving. That was Biodun. That man could walk into an empty room and somehow find someone to dance with. I was not dancing. I was sitting back with my drink, watching the floor below, feeling relaxed in a way that the week had not allowed me to feel. That was when I saw her. She was standing at the edge of the dance floor, alone. In a place like Fusion, beautiful women were not a rare thing, but she was different. Not just beautiful in the way that Lagos nightclubs tend to produce beautiful women, which is to say well-dressed, well-made up, glowing under careful lighting. She was beautiful in a way that felt almost out of place, like someone had dropped her there from somewhere else entirely. She was tall and slender, wearing a deep wine-colored dress that stopped just above the knee. Her skin was the color of dark honey. Her hair was natural, loose, falling around her shoulders. She was not dancing. She was not holding a drink. She was not on her phone, the way most people are when they are alone in a crowd and do not want to appear alone. She was just standing there, completely still, looking at nothing in particular. Or so I thought. Because when I looked at her a second time, she was looking directly at me. Not in the shy way, not in the flirtatious glancing away way that women sometimes use when they want you to come over without admitting they want you to come over. She was looking at me with a calm, steady, almost patient gaze, as though she had been expecting me to notice her and was simply waiting for me to do so. I looked away first. I took a sip of my drink. Conley said something. I laughed at the wrong moment and he looked at me confused and then shook his head and went back to talking to someone else. I looked at her again. She was still looking at me. And now, very slowly, she smiled. I do not know what came over me. I'm not the type of man who walks up to strangers. I have never been that confident in that particular way. But I finished my drink, told Biodun I was going to get fresh air, and walked down the stairs to the main floor. She did not move as I approached. She did not look away. She just kept that same calm, quiet smile, as though my walking toward her was simply the next expected thing in a sequence she had already seen. You look like you are the only person here who is not enjoying yourself, I said, because I could not think of anything more original. She tilted her head slightly. What makes you think I am not enjoying myself? Her voice was smooth, soft but clear. She had no heavy accent that I could immediately place, which was unusual for Lagos. Most people in this city carry the sound of where they came from somewhere in their voice. Yoruba, Igbo, Delta, Hausa, something. But her voice was almost accent neutral, the way someone who has lived in many places has absorbed a little of each. You are not dancing, I said. Neither were you, she replied.
I noticed things. We talked. That is the simple version. The longer version is that we talked in a way I had not talked to anyone in a very long time. She was witty without trying to be. She asked questions that were specific and surprising, not the usual, what do you do, where do you stay, are you married questions that Lagos small talk tends to produce. She asked me what I was most afraid of. She asked me what I thought happened to people after they died. She asked me whether I believed in things I could not explain. I laughed at that last one. Like what? She looked at me steadily. Like the feeling you have right now, that you have met me before, that this conversation is familiar, even though you know it is the first time. I stopped laughing. Because she was right. That was exactly what I had been feeling and had not said. Her name, she told me, was Isioma. She did not offer a last name. I did not ask for one. In that moment, it did not feel necessary. We drank together. She had something dark in a glass that she barely touched. When I offered to order her something else, she smiled and said she was fine. When I asked her to dance, she came with me to the floor without hesitation, and she moved with the kind of ease that made everything around her look effortful by comparison. Not aggressive, not performative, just easy, natural, like the music was playing specifically for her. Biodun passed by at some point and widened his eyes at me with an expression that said, in the clearest possible Lagos body language, "Guy, you have done well tonight." I ignored him. I want to be honest with you here. I was not thinking about Amara. I know how that sounds. I am not proud of it. But in the middle of that conversation, on that dance floor, under those shifting lights, with Isioma looking at me the way she looked at me, everything outside of that moment felt distant, muted, like a television playing in another room. We danced for a long time, long enough that when we went back to stand at the edge of the floor, I was genuinely warm and loose and happy. That was when she said it. Come home with me. Not seductively, not the way you might expect. She said it the way someone says, let me show you something interesting. Casual, simple, like it was the obvious next thing. Something in the back of my mind said, wait, said, think, said, you do not know this woman. But the rest of me had already said yes. I told Biodun I was leaving. He looked at Isioma, then at me, then back at Isioma, and gave me a look that was both impressed and slightly concerned at the same time. He grabbed my arm and pulled me slightly to the side. You know her? He asked quietly. I just met her. You sure everything is fine? She looks... He paused, looking for the word. She looks what? I asked. He shook his head slowly. Nothing, just be careful. Call me when you land. I shook his hand. I told him I would. I walked back to Isioma. We stepped outside together into the warm Lagos night. The street was still busy the way Lekki is busy on a Friday. Cars moving, generators humming from restaurants and shops still open. The smell of suya smoke drifting from somewhere nearby. Normal, alive, familiar. She did not call an Uber. She did not flag a taxi. She just started walking with a confidence that said she knew exactly where she was going and expected me to follow. Where are we going? I asked, falling into step beside her. Not far. she said. We walked for maybe 5 minutes, turning off the main road into a quieter street, then into a smaller one still. The noise from the club faded behind us. The street lights here were spaced further apart. The buildings were older, set back from the road behind low walls and overgrown hedges. I noticed somewhere in the back of my mind that I had not seen this part of Lekki before, which was strange. I had lived in Lagos for 8 years. I knew Lekki reasonably well. But this particular street felt unfamiliar. The kind of unfamiliar that is hard to describe, not just new, but subtly wrong, like a place that exists slightly outside the version of the city you know. I told myself I was just disoriented from the drinks and the dancing. Then she stopped in front of a house. It was a 2-story building, set behind a low iron gate. Not a mansion, not a slum, somewhere in between. The kind of house that in the daytime would look simply old and slightly neglected. At 1 in the morning, it looked like a place that had been standing long before the street around it was built and would still be standing long after everything else was gone. The outside walls were painted a pale color that was hard to name in the dark. Cream or gray or something between the two. The paint was peeling in places. There were no lights on inside as far as I could see, which I noticed but said nothing about. She pushed open the gate, and it swung without sound. Not the slight grinding sound that old iron gates make, just silence. Inside, she unlocked the front door with a key that she produced from somewhere I did not see. I did not think about that at the time. I thought about it later. The inside of the house was cool, cooler than outside, cooler than air conditioning would explain in a room that apparently had been empty all night. There was furniture, a sofa, a low table, a lamp in the corner that she switched on, and which produced a soft yellowish light. There were no photographs anywhere on the walls, no decorations, no books, no shoes by the door, no bags or jackets thrown over the back of a chair. None of the small scatter of objects that fills any space where a person actually lives. It looked like a furnished room, not a home. I noticed this. I filed it somewhere. I did not speak it. She brought me water. She sat beside me on the sofa and we talked more, quieter now, slower. I was tired in the good way that comes after dancing and drinking, the kind of tired that folds into warmth if you let it. She was sitting close to me, and the room was dim, and I was not thinking about anything that deserved to be thought about. Eventually, I fell asleep. I do not remember deciding to. One moment I was there, and the next moment I was not. I do not know how long I slept. What I know is that I was pulled out of sleep the way you are pulled out of sleep by something that is wrong. Not a sound exactly, more like a shift, a change in pressure. The way the air in a room feels different when the power cuts and the fan stops and the silence suddenly has weight. I opened my eyes. The room was darker than I remembered. The lamp in the corner was off. The only light was coming from somewhere outside, a thin gray light that said it was very late in the night or very early in the morning. Isioma was standing in the middle of the room, not sitting, standing, completely still, facing the door. Isioma, my voice came out rough with sleep. She turned slowly. Her face was different. Not different in her features, different in her expression. The calm, easy warmth she carried all evening was gone. What was there instead was something tight, something urgent, something that looked at first almost like fear. "He is coming," she said. I stood up. "What? Who?" "My husband." The word landed like a stone thrown into still water. "Your husband?" I repeated it back to her because I needed to hear it again to believe it. "You have to go now. He cannot find you here." "Isioma, what are you?" I started to stand and she was suddenly close to me, grabbing my arm, her grip surprisingly strong for a woman her size. "Now," she said, and something in her voice made every remaining fog of sleep evaporate instantly. I grabbed my shirt from where I had dropped it, my shoes. I could hear something now, outside, footsteps, unhurried, getting closer. The particular sound of someone who is not in a hurry because they are completely certain of where they are going. The sound was wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. Footsteps have a rhythm that belongs to the surface they walk on. These footsteps sounded like they were coming from below the ground rather than above it. "The window," Isioma said. She was pointing to the staircase. "Upstairs, the back window. This is a 2-story building. Isioma, I cannot jump from the second. Go!" I went.
I ran up the stairs 2 at a time.
The upstairs was dark, and I was moving on instinct, one hand trailing the wall. There was a door. I pushed it open. A room. A window at the far end. Pale gray light coming through curtains that moved slightly, though there was no wind I could feel. Behind me, downstairs, I heard the front door open. I did not look back. I crossed the room in 4 steps, grabbed the window frame, pushed it up. It gave easily, silently. I looked out. Below me was darkness. I could not see how far the ground was. I could not see anything clearly. From downstairs, I heard a sound that I still do not have the right word for. Not a voice, not a footstep, something between them. A low sound, patient, close. I held my shirt and my shoes against my chest, swung my legs over the ledge, and I jumped. The fall lasted longer than it should have. I know that sounds strange, but you know the feeling in your body when you jump from something high. That immediate downward pull, the rushing air, the very short, sharp moment before impact. This did not feel like that. This felt slower, like falling through something thicker than air, like the darkness itself had texture. And then I hit the ground. The impact was hard enough to send pain shooting from my feet up through my knees and into my hips. I fell sideways and caught myself on my palms on what felt like grass. I lay there for a second, stunned, breathing hard, the pain radiating through both ankles. My shirt was still in my hand, my shoes. I had held them through the fall. I waited for the sound of the house, for light from a window above, for Isioma's voice, for something. Nothing. Slowly, I sat up, and that was when I understood that something was very badly wrong. There was no house behind me. I turned around fully, completely, 360 degrees. There was no house. No 2-story building, no peeling paint walls, no iron gate, no low hedge, no street. No street. I was kneeling on the ground in the middle of open darkness, and as my eyes adjusted, as the thin gray light from a distant moon filtered through whatever was above me, I began to see what was around me. Stones. Low rectangular stones rising from the ground in rows. Old stones, some leaning, some cracked, some with markings that had been worn so smooth with time and weather that they were almost unreadable. Graves. I was kneeling in the middle of a cemetery. I want you to understand what that moment felt like. I want you to really sit inside it with me, because it is one thing to read those words, it is another to be there, kneeling on earth that had been dug and filled many times over, surrounded by the names of people who had stopped being people and become stone. In the dark, alone, with no explanation for how you got there. My mind tried to make it make sense. I had jumped from a building. The building had to be somewhere. Maybe I had landed in a cemetery that was adjacent to the property. Maybe in the dark I was simply confused about direction. I stood up slowly, my ankles protesting, and turned again. In every direction there was nothing but graves, row after row after row. The cemetery was large. I could not see the boundary of it in any direction. Above, through what I now realized were trees, not a ceiling, the sky was that deep charcoal color that comes just before 4 in the morning. There was no house anywhere. There had never been a house. I said Isioma's name out loud. I do not know why. Maybe because saying her name was the only action left that made any sense. My voice came out strange in the stillness, flat, small, like the air around me absorbed it immediately. No one answered. I reached for my phone. I had put it in my pocket before leaving the club. I found it, unlocked it. The screen light was brutal in the darkness around me, and I almost dropped it from the shock of it. The time said 3:47 a.m. The signal bar showed 1 bar flickering. I tried to call Biodu. The call went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. I looked around me once more. I told myself to think. I told myself to breathe. I told myself that there was an explanation for this, and I would find it if I stayed calm. Then, from somewhere to my left, deep in the cemetery, among the rows of graves and the low dark trees, I heard a sound. It was not the sound of an animal. It was not the wind. It was not the creak of tree branches. It was a footstep. One single footstep on grass, unhurried. The same rhythm I had heard downstairs in the house that was no longer there. That was when I started running. I ran without direction. I ran away from the sound, which meant I ran deeper into the cemetery without realizing it before it was too late to turn back. The graves blurred past me on either side. My bare feet hit the ground over and over, and the pain from the fall was still there, but fear had moved in front of it and pushed it down. My heartbeat was not a rhythm anymore. It was continuous, one long, unbroken alarm. The trees above me blocked most of the moonlight, and the darkness between the graves was thick and uneven. I hit a low stone with my left foot and went down hard, my palms and one knee slamming into the earth. I scrambled upright without stopping, not running anymore, but stumbling forward with the kind of momentum that is less like movement and more like falling in a chosen direction. I could hear myself breathing, loud, ragged, the sound of a man whose body is moving faster than his lungs can keep up with. I did not hear the footsteps anymore. That should have been reassuring. It was not, because silence in a place like that particular silence is not reassuring. It is a different kind of frightening. The kind that says something is there but has decided it does not need to make noise anymore. I passed a section where the graves were newer. The stones were cleaner, more upright, fresh, dark earth between some of them. I did not look at the names. I did not want to know the names. I kept moving. Then I saw it. Light. Far ahead of me and slightly to the right, orange and steady. Not the flickering light of a candle, the still reliable light of a street lamp. I ran towards it, both ankles burning, one knee bleeding from where I had fallen, my shirt still in my hand, still not put on, which I would have found absurd in any other moment of my life. The light grew as I got closer, and beneath it I could now see an iron gate, high, old, the kind of gate that exists at the entrance to old cemeteries, two heavy panels of black iron with pointed tops. I hit the gate with both hands. It shook but held. I looked for a latch. There was a heavy sliding bolt on the inside. I shoved it back and the gate swung outward and I stumbled through it onto tarmac. Road, a real road. Cars parked along one side, a street lamp directly above me. Normal yellow light. I stood on the pavement and bent forward with my hands on my knees and breathed and breathed and breathed. "Hey!" The voice made me straighten up instantly, every nerve firing. A security guard was walking towards me from a small booth just inside the gate that I had not noticed. He was an older man, 60s maybe, wearing a dark uniform that had been washed so many times the color had softened into something between gray and brown. He had a flashlight in one hand, not pointed at me, just held. And he was not walking with urgency. He was walking with the slow, measured pace of someone who had seen something before and recognized it. That was the first thing I found strange. He did not look alarmed. He looked almost resigned. "What are you doing in there?" he asked. I opened my mouth. I did not know where to start. I looked down at myself, bare feet, no shirt on, shirt bunched in one hand, bleeding me. I looked like a madman. I looked exactly the kind of person you would find stumbling out of a cemetery at 4 in the morning and about whom you would have serious questions. I was in a house. There was a woman. Her name was Isioma. We left a club in Lekki and she brought me to a house. Then she said her husband was coming and I jumped from the window, and when I landed I stopped. I heard how it sounded. The guard was watching me. He was not looking at me with suspicion exactly. He was looking at me with something closer to recognition.
"What is this place?" I asked. "Where am I?" "You are on Ajay Street," he said. "Yaba." Yaba. I had somehow traveled from Lekki Phase 1 to Yaba. 15 kilometers or more, without a car, without a road, without time. "This cemetery," I said, "how long has it been here?" He shrugged slowly. "Since before I was born. This place was here during the colonial time, very old." I looked back through the gate at the graves disappearing into darkness. "Has anything strange—" I did not finish the question. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, with a flatness that was more frightening than any alarm could have been, "You are the 5th person this week this has happened to." The night held perfectly still around me. "What?" I said. "The 5th, he repeated. He said it the way you say a number you have been counting and are tired of counting. Monday, it was a young man from Bagada. Tuesday, a woman. She was in bad condition when she came out. Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, 2 men. Different times, but same story. Different clubs, different women, same ending." He looked at me steadily. "They all say the same thing you are saying. Beautiful woman, she invited them. They went to a house on a street they did not recognize, and then they ended up in there." He nodded toward the darkness behind the gate. I stared at him. What is this? What is happening? He was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the cemetery. He looked back at me. He seemed to be deciding how much to say. "There are things in this city," he said finally, "that are older than the city. Things that were here before the buildings, before the roads, before the people who built them." He paused. "Some of them are hungry, and some of them are patient, and some of them are very, very beautiful." The wind moved through the trees on the other side of the gate, through the graves, through whatever was still standing in the darkness behind all of it. I put my shirt on. My hands were shaking, and it took me 3 tries to push my arm through the sleeve. "The people who came before me," I said slowly, "what happened to them? Are they okay?" He looked at me for a long moment before he answered. "The ones who came out are okay." He said it in a way that made the next question impossible to ask. I did not ask it. I called Biodo. This time he picked up immediately, his voice thick with sleep, and then when he heard mine, suddenly awake and alarmed. I told him where I was. I told him to come. I did not tell him anything else. Not then. I sat down on the pavement outside the cemetery gate and I waited. The guard went back to his booth. He did not speak to me again. He did not offer comfort or explanation. He simply went back to sitting in his plastic chair with his flashlight on his knee, looking at the gate, as though his job was less about keeping people out and more about watching to see who came back through. The sky was beginning to lighten at the edges, that first pale suggestion of morning that arrives before any real light does, the way a rumor arrives before the news it belongs to. I sat on the pavement and I thought about Isioma, about her voice and her eyes and the way she had smiled at me from across that dance floor as though she had been waiting. About the house that had furniture but no photographs, no life, no smell of a person living in it. About the key she had produced from nowhere. About the door that swung in perfect silence. About how she had asked me if I believed in things I could not explain. And about how I had laughed. I thought about Amara, about the quiet apartment I had left to go dancing with my friends because I was bored. About the look on Biodun's face when I walked out of the club. I knew what he had been trying to say. He had been trying to say something was wrong, but I had not wanted to hear it because hearing it would have meant giving something up, and I did not want to give it up. I thought about the other 4 people, the man from Bagada, the woman who came out in bad condition, the 2 men on Thursday. I thought about what condition they had each been in when they emerged from that gate. I thought about whatever the guard had been counting that was not them. When Biodun's car finally turned the corner and the headlights swept across me sitting on the pavement in the dark, shoeless and bloody-kneed and hollow-eyed, he pulled up slowly and got out and stood looking at me for a long moment without speaking. Then he said quietly, "Guy, what happened to you?" And I found that I did not know how to begin. I do not know how to end either, because the thing about an experience like this is that it does not end cleanly. There is no conclusion. There is no explanation that arrives and settles everything into sense. You simply carry it forward. I called Amara the next morning. I did not tell her about Isioma. I did not tell her about the club. I told her I missed her and asked when she was coming back. She laughed and said Sunday, and I said okay, and held the phone long after we hung up. I have not been back to Fusion. I have not been back to Lekki on a Friday night. I have not been back to any club since then, if I'm honest with you. I searched for the cemetery on Google Maps. There is a cemetery on Ajay Street in Yaba. I found it. I looked at the satellite image of it for a long time. I looked at the streets around it. I looked for any building that might have been adjacent that might explain a 2-story house close enough to its boundary for someone jumping from a 2nd-floor window to land inside it. There was nothing. I stopped looking after a while. Sometimes I think about what the guard said. Things that are older than the city. Things that are patient. Things that are very, very beautiful. I think about Isioma standing perfectly still on the edge of that dance floor. How she was not dancing, not on her phone, not doing anything, just standing and waiting. I think about how she asked me if I believed in things I could not explain. And about how that night, before everything fell apart, I had been the happiest I had felt in months. I think that was the point. Because the most dangerous traps are not the ones that look like traps. They are the ones that look exactly like what you have been wanting.
Walk carefully in this city. Not every beautiful thing is safe, and not every house you enter will be there when you try to leave.